The storm came down hard on the forest, bending tall trees and shaking the small wooden cabin at its center. Rain struck the roof like thrown stones, and thunder rolled low and heavy across the sky. Inside the cabin, an old man sat alone beside a dim heater, staring into a metal cup of cooling tea. His name was Elias, and he had lived alone for many years. He liked the quiet. It helped him forget things he did not want to remember. Elias had chosen this planet because no one cared about it. It was far from trade lanes and far from war. The forest was thick, the nights were long, and the sky was often filled with storms. It suited him. He was retired, forgotten, and he wanted it that way. Then came the knock. It was soft. Too soft to be heard over the storm. Elias froze, his hand tightening around the cup. No one ever came here. No travelers. No patrols. No neighbors. He listened again. The storm roared, but beneath it came another sound. Knock. Knock. Elias slowly stood up. His joints ached and his back felt stiff as he moved toward the door. His heart beat faster, not from fear but from instinct. Old habits never truly left him. He reached for the light switch and turned it off. The cabin went dark. The knock came again, weak and uneven. Elias placed his hand on the door. For a long moment he did nothing. He told himself it was a branch, or an animal, or his imagination. But deep inside he knew none of those were true. He opened the door. Cold rain rushed in, soaking the floor. At first he saw nothing but darkness and water. Then lightning flashed and the world turned white for a heartbeat. That was when he saw them. Two small shapes lay on the wooden steps. Pale. Too pale. Their skin was white like fresh snow, glowing faintly in the rain. Long necks curled close together and thin wings trembled weakly. Their eyes were closed and their breathing was shallow. Dragons. Elias stepped back as if struck. His breath caught in his chest. Dragons were not real. Or at least that was what people were told. They were legends from sealed wars, erased records and quiet graves. Albino dragons were even more impossible. Another flash of lightning lit the forest. One of the creatures stirred. Its eye opened slightly, glowing a soft silver. It looked straight at Elias. There was no anger in that eye. There was fear. The smaller dragon made a weak sound, barely louder than the rain. The other pressed closer to it, moving its body as if to shield its twin. Elias felt something crack inside his chest. He had seen that look before. On soldiers left behind. On civilians caught between orders. On creatures hunted for what they were, not what they did. Damn it, Elias muttered. He stepped forward and knelt with effort. Rain soaked his clothes as he examined them. Their scales were smooth and cool, marked with faint lines that pulsed gently with light. One had a deep burn along its side. The other's wing was torn and bleeding slowly. They were dying. Elias looked back into the dark cabin, then at the forest beyond. If patrols were nearby, bringing dragons inside would mark him forever. But leaving them here would end them. Another thunderclap shook the ground. Elias lifted the first dragon carefully. It was lighter than it looked. Too light. The creature flinched but did not resist. The second dragon stirred, letting out a weak sound that made Elias hurry back. Easy, he said quietly, though he did not know why. I've got you. He carried them inside and shut the door. The cabin filled with a soft white glow as the dragons' bodies reacted to the warmth. Elias laid them near the heater and grabbed old blankets. He worked slowly, carefully, his hands steady despite the storm in his mind. As he cleaned the wounds, he noticed symbols beneath their scales. Not natural markings. Designed ones. Old ones. His hands stopped. He knew those symbols. They matched files locked behind military clearance he no longer had. Files about energy beings. About dragonkind. About a war officially labeled as a myth. Elias sat back, his face pale. So they didn't all die, he whispered. One dragon opened its eyes again. This time it did not look afraid. It looked tired. A faint warmth brushed Elias's thoughts, not words but feeling. A quiet plea. Help. Elias closed his eyes. He had walked away from command. He had buried his medals. He had sworn never to be part of it again. But the past had knocked on his door anyway, soft and desperate. Outside, the storm slowly began to fade. Inside the cabin, the old man sat beside two albino dragons, knowing with painful clarity that his quiet life was over. Not because of war, but because someone or something had trusted him enough to knock. And that, Elias knew, was not a mistake. The storm passed during the night, leaving the forest quiet and heavy with mist. Morning light filtered through the trees and slipped into the cabin through small windows. Elias had not slept. He sat in a chair near the heater, watching the two albino dragons resting on the floor. They were wrapped in old blankets, their pale scales glowing softly like moonlight. They were alive. That alone felt impossible. Elias rose slowly and poured water into a small metal pot. His hands moved on habit, but his mind was far away. Every time he looked at the dragons, memories pushed forward, memories he had spent years trying to bury. One of the dragons stirred. Its eyes opened fully now, shining silver and clear. It did not move away. It simply watched him. The second dragon shifted closer, pressing its head against its twin. Elias noticed then how closely they stayed together. They moved as one, breathing in the same slow rhythm. Twins, he realized. He knelt beside them and checked their wounds again. The burns were already healing faster than any animal should. The torn wings still bled slightly but less than before. Whatever they were strong. Too strong for what had been done to them. Elias sat back and sighed. Figures, he muttered. You come to me. The symbols beneath their scales glowed faintly as the light changed. He could see them clearly now. Clean lines. Controlled shapes. Not wild, not natural. Military marks. Elias closed his eyes and the past rushed in. He remembered briefing rooms filled with cold light and colder faces. He remembered words like asset, containment, energy potential. He remembered being told dragons were not living beings, but weapons shaped by evolution. Tools that could bend space, burn fleets, and break planets. He remembered the orders. And he remembered refusing. Back then he had been younger. Stronger. Still foolish enough to believe that saying no mattered. When command ordered the purge, Elias had argued. He had said the dragons showed signs of thought, memory, and emotion. He had said they could be allies. They called him sentimental. They removed him from the final operation and told him the dragons were extinct by dawn. Elias had retired soon after. The cabin creaked softly as the heater clicked. One dragon lifted its head slightly. Elias felt something touch his thoughts again. Not words. Images. Fire in the sky. Metal ships. Screams without sound. Hunting. Elias swallowed. They came for you, he said quietly. The dragon's glow pulsed once. Yes. He leaned back against the wall, staring at the ceiling. So the stories were lies. Not all dragons died. Some escaped. Some hid. And now, decades later, someone was hunting again. Why me? Elias asked. The dragons turned their heads toward him at the same time. The warmth returned, stronger now. Along with it came memory that was not his. A human standing between soldiers and dragons. A voice refusing to give the order. A ship turning away when it should have fired. Elias felt his throat tighten. You remember, he whispered. The dragons did not move, but the feeling remained. Recognition. Trust. Elias laughed softly, without humor. I was just one man. To them it had been enough. He stood and walked to a locked cabinet. His fingers hesitated before entering the code. The door slid open, revealing old equipment covered in dust. Scanners. Weapons he hoped never to use again. A long-range signal reader. He powered it on. Static filled the room at first. Then faint readings appeared. Energy spikes. High orbit. Elias's jaw tightened. They followed you, he said. The dragons shifted uneasily. The injured one let out a soft sound, not pain but worry. Elias moved closer and placed a gentle hand near its neck. The dragon did not pull away. They won't stop, Elias said. Not once they know you're alive. He looked around the small cabin. Thin walls. Old defenses. This place was never meant for a fight. But it had been meant for hiding. Elias began moving with purpose. He activated ground shielding beneath the cabin, systems he had hoped would rust away and used. The floor hummed softly as buried emitters came online. The dragons watched him closely. Their eyes followed every step. Elias realized they were learning just as he was. I'm not a soldier anymore, he said aloud. I don't command fleets. I don't win wars. He paused and looked at them. But I remember how humans think. That night, as the forest darkened again, faint lights appeared far above the clouds. Elias watched them through a narrow window. Distant. Patient. Hunting. Behind him, the twin dragons rested together, their glow steady and calm. They were not afraid of him. They had chosen him. Elias felt the weight of years settle on his shoulders. He had wanted to fade away quietly. Instead, the past had returned in the form of two pale creatures who remembered kindness when the galaxy had offered none. Elias straightened his back. All right, he said softly. Let's remember together. Outside, unseen eyes watched the cabin. Inside, an old soldier prepared to protect what the galaxy had tried to erase. The night felt heavy, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Elias sat at the small table in the cabin, the dim light casting long shadows on the walls. Outside the sky was clear, but he knew better. The scanners showed quiet movement above the clouds. The hunters were patient. They always were. The twin dragons lay close to the heater, their pale bodies glowing softly. The injured one lifted its head and watched Elias. The other stayed pressed against it, never leaving its side. Elias had seen soldiers do the same on battlefields long ago. Brothers and sisters standing together when fear tried to tear them apart. He rubbed his tired eyes. "I told myself I was done," he said quietly. "No more choices like this." The dragons did not answer with words. Instead, warmth brushed his thoughts again. Not pressure. Not command. Just presence. They were waiting. Elias stood and walked to the back wall of the cabin. He pressed his palm against a faded metal panel. For a moment nothing happened. Then the wall slid open, revealing a narrow stairway leading down into darkness. Cold air rose from below. The dragons stirred. "I hoped I'd never open this again," Elias said. He descended the steps slowly, joints aching with each movement. Lights flickered on as he moved deeper underground. The space beneath the cabin was larger than the cabin itself. Old consoles, dormant weapons, sealed crates marked with symbols most people no longer recognized. This cabin had never been just a cabin. It had been a listening post, a hiding place, a last line of defense. Elias reached a console and powered it on. The screen glowed to life, filling the room with soft blue light. He pulled up old files, ones he had not touched in decades. Tactical maps. Alien fleet patterns. Dragon energy readings. His hands trembled. "I buried all this," he whispered. Behind him, soft footsteps echoed. He turned and saw the dragons at the top of the stairs. They hesitated, then carefully made their way down. Their glow lit the room like quiet stars. When they saw the screens, they stopped. Images flooded the air, projected from the console. Old battle footage. Dragons in the sky, massive and bright. Human ships firing. Explosions tearing through clouds. Elias clenched his jaw. "I didn't give the order," he said. "But I didn't stop it either." Pain filled the space. Not anger. Sadness. Loss. The dragons did not blame him. That was the hardest part. Elias lowered himself into a chair. "They're coming," he said. "If I hide you, they'll search the planet. They won't care who they hurt." The injured dragon shifted, trying to stand. It wobbled, then steadied itself with help from its twin. Elias watched, heart tight. "You're not ready to run," he said. "And I won't let them take you." The console beeped softly. A new signal appeared. Enemy drones had entered the upper atmosphere. Elias laughed once, bitter and short. "Of course." He stood up straighter. His back hurt. His hands were old. His reflection in the screen showed a man long past his prime. "I'm not the man I was," he said. "I can't fight them like before." The dragon stepped closer. Their glow grew brighter, stronger. Elias felt energy in the air, controlled but powerful. They were not asking him to fight for them. They were asking him to stand with them. Elias closed his eyes. "I ran," he said. "I told myself I was tired. I told myself the galaxy didn't need me." He opened his eyes again. "But you knocked anyway." He moved to another console and began unlocking systems. Ground shields rose silently around the cabin. Old turrets powered up, still functional after all these years. Not enough to win a war. Enough to send a message. The dragons watched every move. They learned quickly. One placed its claw gently against a glowing panel. The symbols on its scales reacted, matching the light. Elias stared. "You understand this," he said. The dragon's eyes shone. Together they worked. Elias adjusted defenses. The dragons focused their energy, not in bursts of fire, but in careful waves that strengthened shields and bent signals. They were not weapons. They were protectors. Above the forest, a drone slipped through the clouds. It scanned the area, silent and cold. Inside the cabin, Elias finished preparing. He looked at the dragons one last time. "I can still choose," he said. "I can still walk away." The dragons stood firm. Elias nodded slowly. "No," he said. "Not again." The drone's signal locked onto the cabin. Elias straightened his shoulders. "I choose you." The lights dimmed as the first alarms began to sound. The broken man was broken no longer. The first explosion never came. Elias stood at the cabin window, watching the dark shape hover above the trees. The enemy drone floated silently, its metal body reflecting faint starlight. It scanned the ground, searching for heat, energy, fear. Inside the cabin the air was calm. Too calm. The twin dragons stood beside Elias, their pale scales glowing softly. The injured one leaned against its sibling, but its eyes were sharp. They were not hiding anymore. The drone locked onto the cabin. Elias exhaled slowly. "All right," he said. "Now." The dragons moved. They did not roar. They did not unleash fire into the sky. Instead, they lifted their heads together and the light within their bodies shifted. It became focused, narrow, precise. A beam of white energy reached out, silent as falling snow. The drone froze. Its engines died without flame or sound. It dropped gently, crashing into the forest floor far from the cabin. No fire. No shockwave. Elias stared. "You disabled it," he whispered. The dragons did not glow brighter. They dimmed slightly, conserving strength. More signals appeared on the scanner. 3 ships now. Larger. Armed. The forest trembled as the ships descended through the clouds. Trees bent under the pressure of their engines. Soldiers deployed quickly, forming lines around the clearing. Their weapons were raised, aimed at the cabin. Elias stepped outside. Rain had returned, light but steady. He raised his hands, unarmed. The soldiers shouted orders, confused by what they saw. An old man standing calmly in the open. No fear. No resistance. Then the dragon stepped out behind him. Gasps echoed through the clearing. Some soldiers stumbled back. Others froze. Their training told them to fire. Their instincts told them to stop. One soldier shouted, "Dragons confirmed." Elias raised his voice. "They're not attacking." The commander stepped forward, helmet visor glowing. "Step away from the assets," the commander ordered. "They belong to the authority." Elias laughed softly. "You still use that word." The dragons moved closer to Elias, not threatening, not defensive. "Present." "They're dangerous," the commander said. "They burned fleets. They broke worlds." Elias shook his head. "No. Humans did that. Using them." The commander hesitated. "Stand down, old man." The dragons acted again. The air shimmered. Light spread outward in a wide wave, passing through soldiers, weapons, and machines. No pain followed. No damage. Instead, memories appeared. Soldiers staggered as images filled their minds. Dragons fleeing burning skies. Hatchlings torn from nests. Orders spoken without emotion. Worlds marked for cleansing. The truth. Some soldiers fell to their knees. Others dropped their weapons. The commander froze, shaking. Elias spoke quietly. "You were never told the full story." The dragons lowered their heads, their glow steady. They were not forcing obedience. They were sharing memory. The commander removed the helmet. His face was pale. This can't be real." "It is," Elias said. "And you feel it because they let you." Silence fell over the clearing. Then the commander whispered, "Stand down." Weapons lowered. Ships powered down. No one fired. The authority forces retreated slowly, not in defeat but in confusion. The ships lifted off and vanished into the clouds, leaving the forest untouched. When it was over, Elias sat heavily on the cabin steps. His legs shook. The dragons moved closer, surrounding him like quiet guardians. "You didn't burn them," Elias said. The warmth touched his thoughts again. "Come. Choice." "They chose," Elias realized. "You gave them the choice." The forest grew quiet again. By morning, word had already spread through hidden channels. Footage leaked. Memory projections recorded. The galaxy had seen dragons stand beside a human and refuse war. Elias knew it would change things. Some would still hunt. Some would still fear. But something had broken. The light. He watched the twin dragons rest in the early light. They were exhausted but peaceful. The injured one's wing was healing faster now, glowing faintly. "You showed them fire doesn't mean war," Elias said softly. The dragons remained beside him. And the galaxy would never forget what stood in that forest and chose mercy instead of destruction. The forest was quiet again, but it was not the same kind of quiet Elias had known before. It was watched now. Not by enemies alone but by the galaxy itself. Signals moved faster than ships ever could. Images of the old man and the twin albino dragons spread across hidden networks, military channels, and civilian feeds. The truth could not be pulled back once it was seen. Elias sat on the wooden step of his cabin, breathing slowly. His body felt heavy like he had carried a great weight and finally set it down. The twin dragons rested nearby, their pale bodies curled together. They were growing stronger every day. The injured wing was almost whole now, glowing softly in the early light. "They're talking," Elias said quietly, looking at the sky. "All of them." The dragons did not respond with images this time. They already knew. Across the galaxy, leaders argued. Some denied what they had seen. Others demanded answers. Old records were reopened. Sealed files were forced into the light. The name Elias had tried to forget appeared again, linked to protests, refusals, and warnings long ignored. The authority issued statements calling the footage dangerous misinformation. But too many soldiers had felt the memories. Too many civilians had seen dragons choose restraint over fire. The lie was dying. A ship arrived 3 days later. It did not descend with weapons ready. It did not hide in the clouds. It landed slowly at the edge of the forest, its engines quiet and careful. Elias watched from the porch as a single figure stepped out, hands empty. The dragons lifted their heads. Elias stood, joints aching, and walked forward. The visitor stopped a few steps away. "I'm not here to take them," the woman said. "I'm here to listen." Elias studied her face. Tired. Honest. Afraid but trying not to be. "You're late," he said. She nodded. "We all are." Behind her, the ship remained still. No soldiers emerged. Elias gestured toward the cabin. "Then sit." She did. The dragons stayed visible the entire time. They did not hide. They did not threaten. They simply existed. The woman listened as Elias spoke. He told her what the dragons were. What they were not. He told her about the war, the orders, and the cost. He told her about the knock on the door that should not exist. When he finished, the woman lowered her head. "The galaxy is changing," she said. "But not fast enough." Elias looked at the dragons. "They don't need fast. They need honest." The woman left before sunset. She made no promises. But she did not lie. More ships came in the weeks that followed. Some stayed far away. Some landed and left quietly. A few tried to probe, to test. Those ships lost power and drifted harmlessly until they chose to leave. No one was burned. No one was hunted. The galaxy learned something important and painful. Dragons had always been capable of destruction. That had never been the danger. The danger had been humans who believed control mattered more than understanding. Elias returned to his routine. He repaired the cabin roof. He cooked simple meals. He taught the dragons small human habits like patience and waiting. In return, they showed him the sky through memory and feeling. He saw stars he would never visit and worlds that still remembered dragon shadows with fear. "Fear lasts longer than truth," Elias said once. The dragons showed him something else. Fear can end. One evening, Elias sat on the porch as the sun set behind the trees. The dragons lay beside him, larger now, their white scales reflecting gold and red light. He felt tired in a good way. "You don't have to stay," he said. "You could go anywhere." The warmth returned. Gentle. Certain. They stayed. Not because they needed protection. Because they chose it. Far away, the authority weakened. Some systems broke away. New treaties formed slowly, painfully. Dragons were no longer spoken of as weapons. They were spoken of as witnesses. The galaxy learned too late that the old man had been right from the beginning. By the time they were ready to apologize, the dragons no longer needed permission to exist. On a quiet night, long after the broadcast had faded, another knock came at the cabin door. Elias smiled before he opened it. This time the knock was not desperate. It was hopeful. And the galaxy, watching from afar, understood that some lessons cannot be forced. They must be answered.